It's day 4. The rain hasn't stopped, not for a break, not for an hour. It just keeps drumming on the roof until the sound stops being sound and turns into a kind of pressure behind your eyes. You're bored, restless, climbing the walls. But if you were born 50,000 years earlier, you wouldn't be bored right now. You'd be dying. Because a wet human on a cold night is a dead human by morning. Rain steals your body heat faster than cold air ever could, and there is no waterproof anything. No roof you didn't build yourself. No fire that survives the moment water reaches it. No food, because the rain erased every track worth following. And the sky? The sky has 96 more days of this. What your ancestors did in that darkness didn't just keep them breathing, it quietly built the modern mind. Because the real question isn't what ancient humans did when it rained for 100 days. The real question is what that rain did to them. And the answer is stranger and closer to home than you'd ever think. That trapped, restless feeling you get on day 4, we call it cabin fever, and it feels like a modern problem. Something for people with couches and a screen that won't load. But it's one of the oldest things inside you. Long before there were walls to climb, there were humans sitting in the dark, listening to rain that would not stop. Not for 4 days. Not for 40. Sometimes for 100. And somewhere at the back of their skulls, the same small animal voice you know was whispering the same word, over and over. Out. Out, out. So let's start where they had to start. The first and most urgent problem, staying dry. And the first move was as old as our species. You found a roof made of stone. You found a cave. We like to picture cave people as a punchline, a cartoon in furs. But a cave is a genuinely brilliant piece of survival technology. It's dry, it holds heat, and crucially, it protects the one thing that mattered more than almost anything else, fire. At Wonderwerk Cave in South Africa, archaeologists found traces of controlled fire going back around 1 million years deep inside the rock. Sit with what that means. For a stretch of time so long it barely fits in your head, humans and their ancestors were carrying flame into shelter, feeding it, guarding it from the wet, keeping that small orange life alive while the world outside drowned. The rain didn't push us into caves by accident. The rain is part of why the cave and the fire inside it became the beating center of human life. But shelter is only the first problem. Here's the second one, and it's the one that truly separates a human from every other animal caught in a storm. You can't eat a roof. When it rains for a week, the hunting falls apart. Tracks wash away. Prey vanishes. The plants you'd normally gather are soaked, or underwater, or guarded by mud you can't cross. An animal in this situation simply starves or gambles its life out in the downpour. But somewhere along the way, humans started doing something almost nothing else on Earth does at this scale. They prepared for the rain before it arrived. They stored. The Natufians, living in the Middle East around 14,000 years ago, left behind storage structures, places to keep wild grain dry, set aside for the lean stretches when stepping outside meant coming home with nothing. Think about what that actually requires. To store food is to believe in a future you can't see yet. It's to stand under a blue sky and get ready for a gray one. The endless rain didn't just test whether humans could survive a bad week. It quietly rewarded the ones who could imagine the bad week in advance and punished the ones who couldn't. Over thousands of years, that pressure helped carve out a very particular kind of creature. One that plans. That creature is you. And then there's the third problem. The strangest one. What do you do with your mind when your body has nowhere left to go? Because this is the real trap of the 100-day rain. Once you're dry, once you're fed, you are still stuck, hour after hour, day after day, in the flickering half-dark, with the same faces, the same walls, and that same animal voice going out, out, out. And here is where something remarkable happened. Boredom, it turns out, is not empty. Boredom is pressure. And under that pressure, trapped humans did the most human thing imaginable. They made things up. They carved. They painted. They talked. Some of the oldest art we have ever found sits deep inside caves, exactly the kind of dark, sheltered space you'd retreat to when the weather turned ugly. On the island of Sulawesi in Indonesia, There's a painting of a wild pig on a cave wall, dated to at least 45,000 years old, among the oldest images of anything, anywhere, made by a human hand. Nobody painted that in bright sunshine with somewhere better to be. That was made in the deep interior, by firelight, by someone with time on their hands and nowhere to spend it. The rain handed humans something almost no other animal ever gets in bulk, hours with nothing to do but think and imagine and tell each other stories, the tale you tell your children. The myth, the song, the plan for next season. A staggering amount of what makes us human may have been born in the sheer boredom of waiting out the weather. So that's what 100 days of rain did to the human mind. But now, here's where the story turns somewhere almost nobody expects. Because so far, we've been picturing rain as a season a bad stretch, something that ends. What happens when it just doesn't? Around 11,000 years ago, the slow wobble of the earth on its axis nudged the great African monsoon northward, and the rain came to the place that today is the driest on the planet, the Sahara. For thousands of years, not 100 days, thousands of years, it rained on the desert. And the desert answered. Grass rolled across the dunes. Rivers ran where there is now nothing but sand. Lakes appeared out of nowhere. One of them, Lake Mega Chad, swelled until it rivaled the size of an entire modern sea. Stand where it was today, and you'd see only dry emptiness in every direction. This is not myth. We call it the Green Sahara, and the people who lived through it left us the receipts. Scattered across the rock walls of the Central Sahara at places like Tassili Niger in Algeria. There are paintings of a world that sounds impossible now, herds of cattle, hippos, crocodiles, people hunting and dancing beside open water, and at a shelter near the Egyptian border, in a place we now call the Cave of Swimmers, there are little painted human figures doing the very last thing you'd expect to find in the middle of the Sahara. They're swimming. 10,000 years ago, in what is today one of the most lifeless places on Earth, someone painted themselves floating in water. When the rain refused to stop, humans didn't merely survive it. They built entire green worlds inside it. But I'd be lying to you if I made endless rain sound like a gift. Because there's a darker truth here, and every ancient human knew it in their bones. Too much water doesn't just trap you. It comes for you. When the great ice sheets of the last ice age melted, they didn't melt gently. The world flooded. Seas climbed sometimes shockingly fast and swallowed coastlines whole. There was a real place archaeologists call it Doggerland, a stretch of hills and rivers and rich hunting grounds where the cold North Sea now sits. Connecting Britain to the rest of Europe, people lived there, real people, whole generations of them. And then the water took it, slowly until it was simply gone. Around 8,000 years ago, a colossal underwater landslide off the coast of Norway sent a tsunami tearing across whatever remained. An entire homeland, drowned, not a legend. A place with families in it erased by rising water. And maybe that's why what comes next exists at all. Nearly every ancient culture on Earth, separated by whole oceans and thousands of years, tells the same story. A great flood, endless rain, a world washed away, and a handful of survivors clinging to a boat. The Mesopotamians carved it into clay long before the Bible was written. A man named Utnapishtim, warned to build a vessel before the waters came. When a scholar named George Smith first translated that flood tablet in 1872, the story goes that he was so overwhelmed he began tearing off his clothes right there in the museum, because he was reading a flood story older than the one he'd grown up believing was the first. Some researchers argue these myths are a kind of buried memory that the drowning of the coastlines at the end of the Ice Age was so total, so world-ending, that our species never fully shook it off. It's debated. We can't prove it. But it's hard to ignore that the whole human family seems to carry the exact same nightmare. So hold all of that in your mind the next time it's day 4, and you're staring out a wet window with that voice going out, out, out. That restlessness isn't a flaw in you. It's an inheritance. Every trapped, rain-soaked ancestor who kept the fire burning, who stored grain for the gray days, who filled the endless dark hours by carving a pig into a wall or telling a story that outlived them by 40,000 years, they are all still in there. The rain didn't just test the ancient humans. It shaped them. It taught us to shelter, to plan, to imagine, and to remember. And when the water finally rose too high, it gave us the oldest story we know how to tell. You are the descendant of the ones who waited it out, who sat in the dark, listening to the rain that would not stop, and instead of breaking, made something. So let it rain. You come from a very long line of people who know exactly what to do.